This is the talk of Music City Real Estate.
Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
My name is Monte Moore with Realty One Group Music City.
Hey, and I'm Carey Ann with CMG Financial and My Mortgage Team.
Every week we'll be posting a new episode chock full of Nashville real estate value.
Yes, and you can follow along and subscribe at thetalkmusiccity.com.
Got a question for us? Ask away at questions@talkmusiccity.com. Carey Ann.
Yes, Monte
Hey,
Moore.
welcome back. Hey, it's an exciting time. We got Jason Hoover in the house.
Always,
hey, Jason, thank
yes,
you.
How's it
welcome,
going?
welcome.
And we've got a special guest here today.
We do.
One of the local brokers here of another brokerage. It seems kind of odd that we'd bring another broker of another
Very
brokerage
talented
in.
brokerage.
But this guy I have such tremendous respect for. Jonathan Harris, Scout Realty, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me, guys. I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
I mean, Jonathan and I met probably, it's so hard to get the crowd calmed down again. Jonathan and I met a little over a year ago, and I came back to the office and I said, dang, that guy is sharp. I mean, he's really, really an intelligent person. And I was threatened for a moment by that because I thought I was the sharpest rock in the pile. I'm not really. I'm totally not the sharpest rock in the pile. But I was really impressed with him, and I've watched he's doing some homework and changing a business model and seeing where things were going. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, let's talk about our sponsor, Carey.
Yes, our amazing sponsor, Music City Removal. They're the #1 junk removal service in Nashville from residential, commercial, and construction. They're experts in ridding you of junk. Their costs include labor and dumping fees without any hidden or added expenses. Whether you need a full clean out or just one item removed, they have you covered.
The Music City Removal team knows the importance of respect and trust while in someone else's home. They understand the inconvenience of junk left behind by previous homeowners and tenants and are determined to provide an affordable and customer-focused junk removal service that puts you first. For a free on-site estimate, just go to musiccityremoval.com. That's musiccityremoval.com.
Yes, Music City Removal, because clutter ain't cute.
Clutter ain't cute.
No, it ain't.
I'm dealing with something similar like this right now, and that clutter not being cute because we got a house that I just listed that the people bought 20 years ago, and I swear she hasn't taken anything out of that house since then. And I mean, it was so bad that you just had little walkways in there, and it's tricky. You would think normally it's tricky to sell a $900,000 home when it's looking kind of scary inside, but the market is so forgiving right now. Have you found that out, Jonathan? As far as inventory and so forth, it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Whenever people need to live somewhere, they don't really care what it looks like right now.
Exactly. I mean, it's really forgiving, isn't
I
it?
know. I just recently did an event, and one of my giveaways was a stager, and I was like, oh, well, I don't even think you technically need to stage your
Probably
house
don't.
right now, but I was like, well, I don't want her to go out of business either, so I was going to continue to promote her.
I mean, some of these ancillary businesses, it's really a challenge.
What
right
used
there
to be a need,
now it's going to change,
not
though, for
necessary.
those listening.
It'll come back.
What's interesting is probably less than half of the people, Jonathan, you've been around for a while. I bet half the people haven't ever seen anything other than a seller's market here in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true, but I heard in GNR over 50% of the agents have not been in business for over 3 years.
Correct.
Wow.
And so
Correct.
guys like us have been built in the downturn. I mean,
Right.
I remember 7, 8, 9, 10 was rough.
It was
so
really
if your
rough.
business model has been created or adapted for this season,
Mm-hmm.
there's different seasons that come and go in business. And so it's important to have an all-weather mentality.
That's a great point, and that
So
leads
true.
us to let's talk about the changing. Here's I'm going to quote it again because I was so impressed with this analogy that you shared the other day when we were talking. And again, I want to stress, I love this guy. I wish we were working together. He's really, really a sharp guy. But anyhow, so imagine this for a second. Visualize this for a second, that you're looking at, let's say, 500 penguins sitting on an iceberg, and they're looking down, and they're realizing that that iceberg is melting. They're looking down saying, whoa, what's going on here? And they're squeezing together a little tighter and a little tighter and a little tighter. It feels like sometimes the real estate industry, we're doing that because there's 14,000 local real estate professionals here, or agents. Jason corrects me. They're agents. Some of those agents are professionals, right?
There is a difference.
There is a difference, and we know that difference, and that's One of the things we try to always, really insist on within our organization that, look, guys, there's a difference between agents and professionals, but that's another talk. So anyhow, let's talk about why is it that you have pissed off some. Can we say pissed off?
You already did. You just did.
Oh, man.
Why is it? Let's just jump in
Jonathan,
the heart.
you're up.
Oh, my gosh.
Heart of the matter here, Jonathan. What have you? Let's talk about your perception of that block of ice that the penguins are sitting on, that
Right.
the agents are squeezed in on, and we're looking around saying, okay, things are changing. Holy cow!
Global warming.
Yeah, global warming. Yeah, that's another. So let's talk about that. Okay.
Yeah, I think that a couple things stand out. In the Stanford commencement address by Steve Jobs from years ago, he said that this thing that we called life was made up by people who are no smarter than you or I. And in a sense, a lot of times we start to function out of a place of being conditioned. We start to function in our craft from a position about how society has impressed upon us. And I think that it's really sad that we would live most of our lives, if not all of our lives, basically living someone else's narrative. And so my dad was a broker from the 70s and 80s, and I remember our house phone. We had a phone that you'd turn the circle and it kind of clicked back, and it had like a little curly wire like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My
I
dad
know
was a
those.
broker, and he would talk about the business model from that phone. And I think I kind of woke up to this reality a few years ago: is the business model is not evolving, and there are consumer trends that they have expectations of things to be cheaper, faster, better, easier, and the customer has needs and problems that need to be met. And I started to awaken this reality is that modern homeowner problems are not being solved with traditional solutions. And so if we get one life to live, if we get to be in a city that is prime as far as Nashville has never been better. I was born and raised here. So like we're in the prime of the city, prime in our real estate industry. Why would we play an antiquated game that was decades old? And so coming into this year, I made a decision that we get one life to live. I give a very large portion of my life to work. I want to have an important life, therefore my work must be important. For me to have important work is to solve really big problems for a lot of people. And so why would the industry not be on board with that? I think at the turn of the century, there was a guy named Upton Sinclair that said it's really difficult to get someone to understand something when he gets paid to not understand it. And I have found that, and I understand based on conditioning, that it's really easy to perpetuate a business model that always has been for decades versus to reinvent, ideate, ask your customers for feedback. And when they say, we need it to be faster, we need it to be easier, we need it to be better, it needs to be more affordable, we need to adapt to who the customer is. So as a broker, I started to obsess about the customer experience, and I realized that that was going to create a divide between my hypothesis in the way that I see the world from a lens of CustomerCentric. When we put the customer at the center of the conversation and we started to make decisions back from what would be in their best interest, which would be contradictory to what may be in the industry global is best interest. But when you talked about earlier about it being a professional, my dad brought over the house the other day a onesie, and it was like when I was a little bitty kid, when I came home from the hospital, this was my real estate shirt. So from month one, I'm in a real estate. So I'm for the industry. I think that we reserve the right to improve the industry, and I'm not going to live my life playing somebody else's game. So that's maybe why the industry has a little bit of pushback.
Well, but I do appreciate the core of you, Jonathan Harris, is you do love the industry.
Absolutely.
And you do care about the future of the industry, as I do.
The vital few versus the trivial many.
Exactly.
If the associations are going to have such a very low bar to get in, from cost, from time, from commitment, we are attracting. I remember this was several years ago. I had won one of the little awards of excellence, and I think it was 3,600 agents in Middle Tennessee. I had my assistant call RealTrax the other day and just ask them how many users that would take into account all the associations, and there was 16,248 subscribers. There could be some appraisers in there, but we are geometrically growing in our agent count, which means we're not necessarily selling more houses. So we can be very excited about, oh, look at how great the industry is doing, but our transactions per agent is going down.
Right.
Last year, nationally in Nashville, are about on par, about 5.5 per agent, which means we're not even selling one house per every other month.
Yeah.
So if you're going to play, let's say you have the World Series and you're going to insert a pitcher. If this pitcher has only pitched 5 times in their life, are they going to be able to deliver the goods?
Right.
So we have to get better as an industry. And if the associations and the Real Estate Commission are not going to have more strenuous rigor around who they allow in, if we're not going to have cost in a certain way that's going to your level of commitment is how much you're paying into it. Then I think we got to self-stop and say, I'm going to raise the standards for myself. I'm going to raise the standards for our company. I'm going to raise the standards for the clients. And hopefully the industry does well. But when I say the vital few versus the trivial many, we are not getting better as an industry by volume of agents. And that's indicative of the NAR's danger report from just a couple years ago that talks about the dangers of we're incompetent, unethical, and untrained. That was their words, not my words.
Exactly.
Wow.
No, that was a shocker. I know. I remember writing an article for the Tennessean and quoting some of those stats or those comments. It hurts, but it is what it is, and it starts, of course, with identifying the problem so we can change it. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have the conversation here, to get people to think outside the box. Many of the agents have been around for a long time. They know that for a period of time, I sold homes without charge. I did it because the market went down and people were losing their homes, and I felt like I needed them to pivot to be of greater value to it at a time where there was no equity. And it was surprising to me how much hate I got for that, and how people blamed me because they weren't successful. And it's like, I'm not that powerful, guys. Okay, I can't control the market, but I can recognize the market and then pivot accordingly. And I think that's again part of the reason for the conversation here is we've got to raise the bar. We've got to be more empathetic with the customer. It was over 25 years ago. I was standing outside of a training session, and I was talking to some agents saying, look, guys, if we do not insist, or let me say it this way, if we allow the consumer to feel like if we continue to allow the consumer to feel like they overpaid for a bad experience, they're going to find another way. And that was before the internet ever came along, But I had this intuitive knowing that, not every time did the consumer feel like they got their money's worth. And that was eventually going to cost us a reputation. And I think that's why we have to pay attention to those other entities. Jonathan, speaking of what you're coming from, is we've got to be ready to speak to a pain point. We've got to be willing to pivot to the need. And that's why Redfin is succeeding. That's why Open Door is succeeding. That's why Zillow is succeeding, because they're speaking to a pain point. What you're talking about is recognizing, hey guys, there's a pain point here. You might think that you're worth this because you're charging this, but it doesn't necessarily mean the consumer feels the same way. And that's, go ahead, spin that positive out of that, Miss Positive.
Hey, I'm a big believer in what I could hire everybody and anybody in our industry too. I think when it comes to the mortgage business, there's probably as many lenders as there are real estate agents. I think it is important for us to hold strong and true to our own personal reputations if the industry is going to go a little rogue on us. There's warehouse lenders now. It's allowing what we felt to be something so precious just to be a no big deal, and it is a big deal, so I'm right with you in regard to that. If the industry is not going to change, how do you personally make changes to improve your current, surrounding?
You should change the consumer's experience.
Sure, absolutely. And you should hold people accountable. I hold my loan officers within my organization accountable. They can't just throw a file up against the wall and hope it sticks. There's something about being true to your word. Like, do not send a letter out unless you know that letter is going to be held, it's truly going to be approved. Like, we just don't throw letters out. I mean, there's more loans across my desk that were denied at the last minute from other lenders. Like, that would just make me not, I wouldn't sleep at night, if that happened. I'm so thankful that it does happen because I stay employed and my 7-year-old can probably go to college because of that. So I'm grateful for that. But I would never want it to be on my side for sure. And you see it often, people, they don't take it seriously. And I don't know why it's like a game. Like, it's a contract. We're signing like a legit contract, a legal document. Lenders, I have a client right now too, and it's not even the lender itself. I think we have allowed the client to be it works. It doesn't. It's fine. I'm going to get my earnest money back, And right now, I've told you too, I'm holding all parties in this lawsuit right now. And it's on my second year for no other reason. I don't have to do it. It's costing me more money than what I'm actually going to make, but I'm trying to hold a point. Like, you can't just give a letter and then yank it 4 hours before closing,
A convenience.
For convenience.
Yeah.
So and then to say you're denied, and then you're going to go down the street and buy the exact same priced home and get an approved. Like, that's not how this works,
It's not an option.
No, and that shouldn't be allowed, period, and to find attorneys that read a gray area somewhere in the mix of it that's allowed. Why get a commitment letter if you have a financial contingency up until the last minute? I still don't understand that. But, like you're saying, if that industry is not going to change, how do we change our personal, standards to improve, what we can improve? So I love that. I love everything that you're saying. So,
Jason,
I'm a
I know
big believer.
I know you're one of the sharpest people I know in this industry as well. So let's share your thoughts on what we're talking about.
I liken this to back when I was in the music business, the early 2000s, and music business was fantastic.
Were you a rapper?
Did you Google me before this?
He probably was like, were you a singer?
No, so music business. So I was in then it was called new media, which was internet. And like, wow.
Stepping up.
Yeah. So I communicated a lot with the, around the globe. But where I'm getting at is that everything was going great until Napster hit. And so I had to live through Napster. And I saw the people I was working for getting pink slips and laid off. And then, mergers started to happen. Well, and I was with Sony at the time, and they drug out a legal battle against it. Well, the thing is that change is going to happen.
Yeah.
You got to adapt, you got to change. And they were still holding on to the old way of doing business where you have to buy the full album to get 2 good songs on it. And so that has changed, whether they liked it or not. And I see, what we're going through right now is very similar to that. Is that, hey, let's embrace change. Let's be better for it. Let's find out what the customer wants and how we can provide that as best value and service to them. It's not going to be the same way that we used to do it. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're going to continue evolving in this industry. And yes, to your point, I am all about making it, setting that bar up higher for, the entry fee to get into the business, because we are held to a very high standard. And I don't think that matches up to how easy it is to get into it. And when that happens, you have people that are just kind of, you're just going through a revolving door. And that's why we have such a high, a stupid high fallout rate.
87%? It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. But because of that, that's what gives us a bad name. The people that are, in what I say, professionals.
Right.
I'm a professional. I'm not just an agent. And that's who we want in our brokerage, are professionals. We're not interested in just to have a revolving door right here. But it takes those professionals to embrace that change, to become the go-to resource and provide that excellent experience for the customer.
And I think you're onto something, Jonathan, when you say, let's lead with customer-centric first, and back into. I've never trained under a loan officer training because I never wanted to go down that road. I wanted to learn a new way. I said, why can't we do it a different way? Why do I have to wait 5 days in underwriting? When you said that, like, my loan is stuck in underwriting. Why? Why can't it be different? I'm going to make it different. And it required me to stand up just like you and to make changes and to put my foot down so many years ago, to force those changes. Why can't I close a loan in 8 days?
Right.
Who's stopping me? The law says I can. Why can't? Just because somebody else says I can? No, I'm I'm going to. If there's a
Run the
way, because of the
mile.
speed
That's
is
right.
important. Speed's important. So I think you're onto something.
You went
for
to
sure.
several other types of businesses to start modeling your business after.
Right. I mean, I
you didn't
focused
stay in the
on-
mortgage business and
Right.
say, how do I do it within here? You went outside of that, and I think that's part of what we're talking about here is going outside of
Right.
the mental perspective of what this is, what it looks like. I mean, I can't tell you how many hate letters I used to get when I was offering to sell somebody's home without charge if they'd buy another home with me. I mean, I got so much hate stuff, and it always go back to, well, you get what you pay for. And I said, that's the challenge. People don't feel like they're getting what they pay for. And I hate to say that loud, guys, because it hurts my heart. Because that's what this thing is hinging on, I think, is the consumers not feeling like they got what they paid for.
Well, and I see, there's two sides here. You get what you pay for, and then I also hate the other side is in some of these places that how they advertise and how they treat agents as the bad guy.
Yeah.
And in their marketing of that, I think that is where there's a lot of problem as well.
Yeah.
As far as this whole change, like, wait a minute, I'm a professional as well.
Yeah, that's why I don't like Open Door and some of the other companies that are making us look like
Right.
we're a bad guy when the real underlying reality, I think, is they don't want the agent involved because there's not a higher level of accountability, and then they can take advantage of the consumer. Well, you're not paying 6% now; you're only paying 87% or whatever the number is. Turns out to be with the cost,
Right.
So
But there are, go on, Jonathan.
No, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I just was saying, I've been trying to sell one piece of property, and I went from one option where there was no commission based on it, and then I went to another where I was paying full.
You used a company that wasn't charging any commission? Is
No,
that what you're
real
trying to
estate
say?
agents.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, some friends were helping me
Sure.
out, or this or
I'm
that.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Shh, quiet.
Just kidding.
But what I will say is, I think it comes down to the person.
Yeah.
Your quality, I'm quality. Whether we do this for free or not, we're still going to provide
Yeah.
the service level that our parents taught us to provide. There's some people out there that are just super cool. I don't know if it's because they weren't trained the way we were all trained from the roots, ground up, or it's like no big deal. Like, it's just, I don't need to push any harder. I don't need to try, maybe because something's not in it for me. But I was raised, you give your all, whether you're making $1 or not, because
right.
tomorrow you're going to make 2 or 4, and continuing, you're just going to continue. I don't know, but that lot, I will tell you, the person that ended up selling it gave their all constantly,
Yeah.
and I was so comfortable paying that commission on that, right? So I do feel there's a level of, I don't know how to measure that, 'cause there's some people that just all of a sudden you hear the story, and no disrespect because the market allows, but you put it on, it goes live, and then you have 50 offers in an hour that are all above, and you didn't even have to, I don't even think you took a picture. I'm not saying you, but you get what I'm saying? So I don't know how to measure that. So
Well, then
in
that's
this market, that makes it
and
difficult.
what you're talking about is part of what's forcing this whole change. I mean, you've got options now in town, like a Redfin for 1%, or a Open Door to not have somebody walk in your house and that kind of stuff. There's options now which are going to. I think it's going to. That's why I feel like Jonathan's conversation here today is so relevant to encourage agents to look, guys. There's other entities that are coming in and speaking to pain points. You better be ready to do that as well. And again, one of those pain points is value. Are you worth what you're charging me?
So share.
Yeah. So, I mean, my perspective on that is, I think that most everyone feels probably they have a heightened sense of value of themselves, more so than maybe somebody outside, like, oh, I'm worth it. I'm not like one of those people. Mm-hmm. I have learned that there has been seasons in my career where I was on vacation, we had a baby, I was sick, life was happening, and so my customer service or experience did have variations. And so my competency did not, was not gone. However, my life circumstances, I was in a place.
Right.
So I started to learn that we need to be process dependent more so than people dependent. I think a great example of this is Nick Saban. Nick Saban, he loses his best players every year. They go to the draft. He loses his best coaches. They go coach at all the competitors, but they still continue to win championships. He speaks to the process of preparation, the process of recruiting, the process. Even this year, whenever he had the coronavirus during the Auburn game, the commentator said it probably is not going to make that much of a difference that he's not there, because his process throughout the week of preparation. So, for me and my companies, it's understanding that we're not personality dependent. I think that we are in an industry that is very self-promoting. We lead with image and, in a sense, ego. And I think that for the most part, people have the right heart and they want to serve, they want to help. So like their heart's in the right place. But their competency is not there to actually deliver. And at the company level, because they're classified as independent contractors, the IRS says you cannot govern their activities.
Right.
So if I can't govern their activities and they're independent, the customer's experience is up and down depending upon the life stages that someone's in. So, I'd like to, position like I'm an expert, I would never do this, but the reality is there's seasons in which I just frankly failed customers. There's seasons to where I had the ability, but I did not have the bandwidth. And so if we're going to give a predictable customer experience, it has to come down through processes and systems that's being delivered at the company level, irregardless of the independent contractor, which means the contractor has to be held to a standard. And I think that, I know you to the core, Monte, and some of the things that impress me is about your core values and your perspective on the world. And so for your agents to say, you know what, we're going to submit ourselves to the company structure, and we're going to come under this umbrella in an effort to serve the customer, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I'm being held accountable, even if the KPIs or the key performance indicators are not something that I really want to adhere to. I believe the customer's experience is going to be better under an organizational umbrella versus an independent umbrella.
Love that.
But that sounds like just a large team.
I think the large teams typically have a better customer experience because there is processes and systems.
So I would say really then the brokerages are two different things. It's more of like a large team versus a brokerage.
It's however we want it to be. I mean, I think that
because as a team, I mean, what I was listening to what you're saying, I'm like, well, yeah, you can, in a team, you have the processes, you have the people, you have, the agents that helps with those along the way. But like a brokerage is where you do have the independence.
Yeah. So for example, like for our company, if we have a listing coordinator or a buyer coordinator, a marketing coordinator, there is no deviation. Like you actually cannot go outside of the process. I think that to find people who are willing to be held accountable to that standard is just different. I think that some people just don't embrace it. But again, the objective it's not to be right. The objective is how can we give the customer a very predictable experience? When they come into this, they know what they're going to get. How do we make sure that it's designed in such a way to drive down cost? It's designed in such a way to increase the value. I mean, we have a term at our company that we obsess about is value innovation, which is how do we make this, in a sense, cheaper, driving down cost, and how do we increase the value? And that overlay is value innovation. And so I believe that
it's sort of like the Model T. Your assembly line.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah,
I have that.
It changed the whole world.
Yeah. I mean that's how I built my team. I realized there's some people I would want to bring into the team because I can get them underneath, and if they did it with the systems,
do what you do well. Let somebody else do what they do well.
Right. And it's and then I have loan officers that don't want to follow suit, but the core beliefs within my small organizations. That's why I only have 13 loan officers, because I do sometimes feel like if you get too many people, they're not all going to follow. Someone's going to go rogue, not follow suit with that process. So I love what you're saying. So what you've built is you broke it down and you had a beginning, middle, and end.
That's right.
So whether that season in life happened, the customer does not feel anything different. So
I have an agent who's out of town right now. She's on vacation. She did right at 60 million last year in personal production. And she's out of town for the next week, and her drop-off, there is no drop-off.
Love it.
Is because the customer's experience was predetermined. We talked about before, during, and after? What is every steps in the sequential journey? And when she's not the personality that's there, how do we make sure that there's not a service drop off? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's where, who's the hero of the story? For familiar with Donald Miller, for us, we want the hero of the story to be the customer.
Right.
We just happen to be the guide, but the guide has a plan and says we have a checklist that we're going to follow without any variation, any deviation from the standard. We're committing to the standard. And that really comes down to, is the agent, or if you're a football player, are you going to wake up at 5 o'clock? Are you going to go to preseason and work out? Are you going to run wind sprints? If you don't want to, this is not the environment for you. But if you're committing to the standard that it takes to deliver, then this is where you're going to find a home.
Brady does. Brady did. Brady got there.
He did.
Yeah, every Monday, right?
Jonathan, you're hitting on some things that I think that every agent needs to pay attention to. I don't know what to do with the idea of a team being more effective than an individual, because you're not going to have everybody's not going to be part of a team. I mean, don't get me wrong. This afternoon we onboarded some agents, and I said, look, we try to run this organization more like a team, more like a family than we do as a bunch of individuals. Now, everybody's free to do your thing. I can't tell you what to do. You're an independent contractor. At the same time, I'm responsible for what you do. And I'm also taking responsibility for the consumer's experience. So that's why I want you to be part of the trainings and the support opportunities and the Group Me app and the Monday morning huddle call, because there is a philosophy, there's a value extended belief system extended that we've got to raise the bar in our industry, because if we don't, then that evolutionary process is going to leave us, high and dry, I'm afraid.
And communicate that bar.
And yes.
But you've built a success process for real estate within your organization, right?
Yes.
For you. So you could bring multiple independent folks into your organization, and you could send them through the orientation to say, here's the true success, beginning, middle, and end, right? And you get them to adapt to that.
My hope is that there would be a movement in the industry. It's not necessarily my company or anybody.
Sure.
That there's a movement to a standard of process, of ideation and innovation, that people are saying, hey, how could I make this cheaper for the client? I think that's a magnificent obsession, because, if we say that you get what you pay for, is that true for Netflix?
Right.
Netflix knocks out Comcast over $9.99 a month.
Yep.
Did you get what you pay for? No, you got so much more.
Now look at Redbox.
They're gone.
Yeah.
So for us,
and they were the first one that knocked out Blockbuster.
Right. Right. So if we start to ideate and say, you know what, I think that we can play a game with ourselves about how can we drive down the cost and make it more efficient, more quality,
where it's a win-win.
Absolutely, it's a win-win. So I think that we reserve the right as an industry to get smarter, and I have found that
we should, or it's going to go away.
Exactly. I think it's absolutely absurd, and this is where the industry really does not appreciate me and what I stand for. I think it's absurd for us to charge our customers based on their value. It would be like taking your car to a car wash and they're like, hey, we're going to run a Kelley Blue Book analysis on this car before we tell you how much we're going to charge it to wash it. That's absurd. It's a service.
I think you're onto something where you're right. I mean, we all pay the same price for that car wash, right?
Should we come back another time and pick this same conversation up?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
We're in the midst of the car wash.
Yes,
we're going to leave you halfway through the car wash.
Really important, guys, okay? And I don't want to shortcut this at all, so we're going to pick this up in another conversation. Be sure to stay tuned, okay?
Yes, thank you so much. You've been listening to The Talk of Music City Real Estate.